Take off your shades, it helps see through the smoke, cause the wicked hide behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog, what's real, what ain't, is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog. We bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Speeding the facts.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy. It is Wednesday morning, and we've got a decent show for you today. We are going to be talking about the pharmaceutical industry and what's happened recently with the things that are happening in the world in countries like India, where they are suffering horribly right now in the pandemic, and the push to depatentize, if that's actually a word, the COVID vaccine, so that we can get more vaccines in the arms of people that need it. And capitalism's solution to that. And that's probably the nicest way to put that. But that starts with my introduction of my lovely and talented co-host, Ms. Carrie Barber. Good morning, Carrie.
Hey, good morning, Andy. And yeah, you're so right. It is, I guess it's actually a word now, but so yeah, we're going to tackle all of this, and a lot of the information that we're going to cover today is curation from other journalists who are doing some outstanding work. One of them I want to call out, and I reached out to him because I would prefer to have him on rather than talk about him, was Carl from Open Secrets, is doing just kick-ass journalism, old school journalism, and he's really covering this issue tremendously. So we'll cover a couple of his pieces today, as well as data and statistics, and trust me, we'll make it fun. I know it's too early for all of the numbers and the mathy bits, but
we'll do our very best.
Right. And shout out to Lewis, who is watching us for the first time. He's like, I didn't know you existed. So welcome, Lewis. Thank you for joining us. And
my father told me of that a lot.
I didn't know. Oh, Andy, you poor thing. Yeah, so we'll bring the therapist back on for Andy and everyone else later.
Yes, but that's another show.
That's another show.
Yeah.
So we are now proudly members of the Fred Hampton Leftists, and we are also in syndication on KRTD Media. So welcome to all of these new audiences. We love to have you. We love the conversation. So if you're watching for the first time, you can type information or your opinion, critique, whatever it is you need into the chat, and we'll see that. And we want to have that conversation. So be nice, be respectful, and make sure if you're gonna post your opinion, it's not a batshit crazy opinion, because we'll shred it. I guarantee you.
Yes, with a healthy dose of snark.
Oh, absolutely. And I just gotta warn everybody. Andy's on point today. So
and slightly annoyed and not feeling well. So
right. It's grumpy Uncle Andy. Yeah.
Come at me.
Cash me outside.
Cash me outside. I got 99 problems, and they're all because of capitalism.
Right? Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. So
I'm actually thrilled that we've been adopted by the Fred Hampton Leftists, because I am really looking forward to those conversations and moving forward, because it's difficult when you're in my age group, and the vast majority of people that are my age have gone through, and the slightly older people have gone through the best of times, quote unquote, when you could your family could survive on a single income, and everybody was happy. And before the neoliberalists got their claws into the economy. And so it's and that going with that is the Red Scare and the closed-minded propaganda-fed narrative that we see a lot of times. And I don't blame people my age for being that. Been around for a lot longer and have been inundated with it for a lot longer. But the conversations I'm really looking forward to are the ones that don't include those narratives, right? That where we have people that are born at a time where home ownership is a near impossibility, right? The climate is being destroyed, and people are saying, well, okay, but our solutions, we're not talking to the commies, right? And so that opens up a avenue of ideas and concepts that I'm looking really forward to talking about.
Yeah, and I think you and I have talked about doing an entire show on just the basics of what these political ideologies are, because people just don't understand. So we will get into a little bit of socialism.
I think we're back.
Yay!
All right, so I guess we'll give some people a moment to come back on here.
Yeah, Amber said we're back. So thank you, Amber. So obviously live, anything can happen. So this is great.
Yeah, I apologize for that. That was my internet connection went down for some reason. We're having some thunder bangers run around through here right now and some rain. This is, it might have been something that my internet provider had to reset so that it comes back up. But looks like we're back and connected. Now, cool. The question is, can you remember where we were?
Yes, I can.
You can?
I can.
Woo.
Okay. I did my homework. So we were on the first graphic, and I was going on a little tirade about lobbyists. So this is the Ricchetti brothers. And I think what we'll do is we'll just splice this together for the replay so it's not so awkward in the middle for all of our replay viewers who don't catch us in the morning.
Okay, and I think we lost about 10 minutes, so I think that we owe 10 minutes of after the hour, right? So unless, of course, you have somewhere you have to be.
I do not. So
okay, so I'll bring up the graphic. Here we go.
Okay.
We'll get right back into it.
Right. Okay. So the gremlins caught us on this one. So with the Ricchetti brothers, this is just a prime example of why maybe lobbyists and the revolving door is a problem, because money talks. And Andy, you have said this throughout the entire history of our show for the last year and a half. These are the donors, the donor class. And if they're willing to spend this amount of money on just one lobbyist with access because his brother works there, they've had this relationship with Biden, they've got his ear, that's a solid investment. That's just a fraction of the money that they stand to make by having this lobbyist having these kind of conversations. And for those of you who kind of doubt the power of influence that a lobbyist has, call your congressperson right now and tell him that you'd like to have a sit-down meeting. See how that goes.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, typically we have to show up with 50 to 100 of our closest friends, signs, chanting, yelling, whatever, and our congressperson still isn't there.
Yes, and a representative of the congressperson in uniform usually shows up.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So let's take a historical look at this particular issue when it comes to COVID and the vaccine and the efforts to stem the tide of death and misery and loss that has gone on. So Andy, this will be the next graphic. This is the March 2020. So this is a little bit of a look back. And for this one, I surprisingly, I want to call out to The Intercept. This was an article that they had published, which I don't know how they got permission to publish something anti-Biden, but they did. Way to go. So this is an article from Li Fang, who was talking about this. And this is a historical look back. March 2020, last year. So when this pandemic, they already knew that this was going to be horrific. And the pharmaceutical industry already had their lobbyists out in Congress saying no. They didn't want to have anything to do with vaccine patents or technical knowledge. All of that needed to be done to manufacture them. They didn't want to have that shareable. They were still interested in profits and going forward. And let me explain to you why that is. It's a SARS virus. And Dr. Dillon, we've talked to him many times, and hopefully we can have him back. The mutations that we've seen from the initial variants that went around globally, we're now on like 38, the 38th mutation. This is going to keep mutating over and over and over again. So you're going to need updates and boosters. And they're already talking about everyone who's gotten the vaccine now will need boosters by the summer. So this is a cash cow when it comes to the business of vaccines. So of course they don't want the patent release, and they don't want competition from the global economy. But here's the problem. And I think this is the overarching conversation that we're not having. When you have the poorest countries who are right now only receiving about 1% of available of vaccines, that mutation gets to fester there and it comes back around. So think of the world as one petri dish, one ecosystem, and it is. And you let this go on in poorer countries because fuck those people, apparently. It comes right back to us. And this is what we're seeing already in the US, where you have the variant that just ravaged Brazil coming up north into the United States. So that's really the big picture, but lobbyists are paid to think in a very narrow for-profit margin. And this is the conversation that's happening in Washington, not necessarily in our best interests. So the
not necessarily?
not at all. Not at all. Let's just be honest about that. So one of the things that came up was this, it's been nicknamed the Bayh-Dole Act. So this is Evan Bayh and Richard Dole, I think was his first name. I think it's Richard Dole. But shout out to Sherry Wise, who has in the past been very good about educating us on how the laws and regulations actually work. So this is regulation PL 96-517, and it's called Amendments to the Patent and Trademark Act. So I did post in the chat, and I'll post it again, the actual link to this codified amendment and the Trademark Act that talks about this. So what's the issue here is when you have public money spent for an enterprise, whether it's technology, which is where this Bayh-Dole Act came from, or in patents for health and vaccines, what happens is the US government retains the right to dissolve the patent that they have issued to a private enterprise so that it can help the public good. And this was put in there for two reasons. Number one, to help private enterprise, these are companies and all of these other entities that wanted to fund research at the university level. So all of that money started pulling in to grants and research and all of these sort of things under the promise that if I hire this university or if I hire this agency, and there are, it goes from defense to health to all of these things, if I hire them to do these tests, then I can take that data and turn it into a profitable enterprise. So what happened as a result of this, and it's really fascinating, is that all of these researchers were now being funded adequately because of this particular amendment. Now, on the flip side, if a private enterprise is funding these things and getting public funds, like in pharmaceutical companies, and then they do some shady shit, then the federal government can take that patent and dissolve it, even temporarily or permanently, and make the data knowable everywhere.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and why is that important? Well, obviously, you're saving lives in other countries, but as you just talked about, we live on a round ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we're all interconnected, primarily through travel, and getting rid of the virus on a global scale is really the only way to deal with it. Well, in terms of the capitalists and these large companies, that makes no sense, right? Because it's not profitable to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're seeing that in real time. And I shared just recently, a couple of days ago, I think, the interview with Bill Gates, who said that, oh no, we couldn't possibly share this technology or the recipe for the vaccine, right? And he gave his little critiques of why that is. Well, the reason is because the pharmaceutical industries and Bill Gates directly tend to lose the ability to make a huge amount of money from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why is it significant that it's Bill Gates? Well, Bill Gates is basically the father of technological patenting and copyright law that took an industry that is, basically coders and computer geeks that were all, trying to push the envelope of technology in terms of computers and processing.
So apologies for the interruption, everyone. But we thought this information was so important that we wanted to make sure that you had it to go through, sit with, and do some research on your own. So this particular portion of the broadcast will not include Andy. Andy is experiencing some catastrophic storms that have taken his internet out of play. But we'll go ahead and continue, and I just want to make sure that you understand exactly what is going on right now in Congress. And with this, we need to take a slight look back at what happened in March 2020. This is where the lobbyists from Big Pharma, the individuals who are being paid to argue on behalf of pharmaceutical companies to protect their profits. In March 2020, during the stimulus bill, the original COVID stimulus bill, they actually were successful in stopping Congress from adding any language to that bill requiring affordability for the COVID vaccines. You recall there was some talk of making them free, making them affordable. That hasn't happened. And if you were able to get an appointment for your vaccine, either the first, second course, or the one dose from Johnson & Johnson, you will have seen that they ask for your insurance information because they were billing your insurance for that dosage. So that is one of the ways that they have been wildly successful in doing this. The conversation now goes to the Biden administration, who can use executive powers to force this, yet they have so far declined to do so. So right now, today, and in the preceding weeks, they have been arguing with members of Congress and the White House staff against going through the Patent and Trademark Act. This is PL 96517, and I will absolutely include a link so you can see it. This patent actually allows for the federal government to suspend patent rights either indefinitely or for a short period of time to make sure that the public money that we have already invested in research and development can go for the public interest. And this means allowing other countries, other groups, access to the research and data so that they can manufacture on their own. And we have heard, and Andy mentioned it earlier, that Bill Gates is now making news because he's saying that, oh no, you can't do this with patents, you can't do this. Well, of course, Bill Gates would say that because he has been the champion and father of making sure that patent rights are held. And obviously, Microsoft has a very long history of infringing on the patent rights and lawsuits and also litigation to make sure that any other competition was wiped out of the marketplace because of the patent law. Well, Bill Gates now is saying that, oh, you can't extend this information to countries like India because it couldn't possibly manufacture these drugs. Well, in earlier presentations, if you've been watching, we gave you the information and it is publicly available that 90% of all pharmaceuticals, things that you take now from Ambien all the way to heart medications, these are all manufactured in India today. And what happens is they manufacture, package, and then send it out around the world. So Bill Gates is outright lying to you, and he's doing it from a profit motive. I do want to touch on one thing that the far right media had said in an effort to discredit vaccines. They talked about Bill Gates being indicted for vaccine experimentation in India, and that's not exactly what happened. In 2013, the PATH group, PATH, that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to the tune of about $70 million. The PATH group had been going forward with HPV vaccines and using them, testing them basically on orphans and girls, sometimes without the girls' parents' permission, and a number of those girls died. So the response to that was the Indian Parliament. They met and worked on some new laws and things specific to that. So those two issues are not the same. And, credit goes to Fox News and all of their fear mongering to try and conflate the two issues. They are absolutely not the same. So getting back to the patent issue, this is something that we can, and in my opinion, should do. We should suspend the patents because the overarching issue here is this particular SARS virus. It is mutating and we will see it again. It will come around again. What the vaccine has done now is make sure that if you get it, much like the flu and other things, it won't be as severe. You already have some immunosuppressants to help you with fighting the virus should you get it again, and we will see it again. So it is crucial that we take care of impoverished nations and ramp up the amount of vaccines that they're getting right now. Right now, like I said before, it's about 1% of available vaccines. So then in going on with this lobbyist influence in Washington, Biden's campaign, we have to take a critical look at how he came into the White House to begin with. His campaign and outside groups backing him have taken over $1.34 million from pharmaceuticals and healthcare products industries. And one group in particular, Unite the Country, spent $22.2 million on behalf of the Biden campaign. This was either directly promoting Biden as a candidate or against Trump as a candidate. So $22 million. And all of that was spent by an organization that has been led by individuals who have ties to the pharmaceutical industry. This is the first one that we want to look at is Larry Raske. He is the founder and chairman and CEO of Raske Partners. That is another lobbying firm whose pharmaceutical clients have included Eli Lilly. Amanda Loveday is associate director of a public relations organization as part of a law firm that represents many healthcare and pharmaceutical industries. And then Unite the Country board member, Mark Riddle, previously served on the board of a centrist think tank, the New Democratic Network, that received funding from pharmaceutical research and manufacturers, the Manufacturers of America, which is the leading drug industry and top lobbying group. So all of these people have ties to a highly profitable industry. And I've also included links to the profit margins that pharmaceuticals have enjoyed as opposed to the rest of the industries that are typically categorized. They're at about 33% profitability, and that was prior to 2019. This year, we're waiting for the final data, but it's going to be off the charts when it comes to profiteering. So then the question comes, how much is enough? When is enough enough? And part of the conversation needs to include the public funding. This is the socialized part of public funding for these for-profit agencies, all of these pharmaceutical companies. So when we talk about socialism's bad, we need to recognize that it's our dollars, the public purse, particularly in the US federal dollars, that go towards R&D, either through universities or through the pharmaceutical companies directly. And so this is the last bit of data. And I pulled a lot of this from Statista, which is a great resource that is just raw data, nonpartisan, data doesn't lie. And here we can see that $33 million went into the R&D, that is public money, and another 66 from private industry. So we have a huge stake in what happens with these patents and how available these vaccines are. So while pharmaceutical companies are primarily interested in protecting their profit margin, we as the people have to look at our current conditions. So even though we may be immunized now, those boosters are coming because this particular virus has a mutation factor. So you're going to see it again and again and again, particularly when we're not protecting all of those countries right now where the mutations are actually happening. So what will happen is in the next wave, the next year that comes around, we're going to see a new variant of it. We'll need those boosters. And then, oh, by the way, we have seen the WHO, the CDC, and all of these global organizations talk about that this COVID represents maybe just the first of all of these pandemics that we should anticipate, in particular because of climate change and the moving of populations because of the effects of climate change. So the overarching argument here is we have already invested quite a bit from the public. We should be looking critically at making sure these vaccines and the methods of manufacture are available globally, because in the end, it's going to affect us all. So again, we really apologize for the outage this morning, the delay. It's a live broadcast. It can happen. So we are working on our technology to make sure that Andy's got coverage, I've got coverage, all of these things. But we so appreciate you tuning in, so appreciate the feedback, and really miss the feedback from all of our viewers this morning. You guys are just amazing critical thinkers. So I ask that with this information, you sit with it, you read it, you try to understand it. If you have questions, send them in. We will answer them as best we can, but share this information far and wide, because even if somebody considers themselves a centrist or a conservative, this matters. Here in this country, we have over 500,000 families in mourning, not just for loss of a family member, but also they have those medical bills that they have to cover on top of funeral services. And when we're having a conversation with pharmaceutical industry and their lobbyists are getting front row seats to our members of Congress, this is a critical conversation we need to have across the board. And it's folks like you and I who can really make the difference by talking to our friends and neighbors and, putting pressure on members of Congress. This is, in my opinion, this is the right thing to do. This is exactly what this law was entailed to handle. If pharmaceutical companies are more interested in profits than they are protecting their own consumer base, then it's time for our representatives in Congress to step in and make sure that they are towing not only the sound business model, but the right moral thing to do. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we apologize. We will be back on Friday, and we will have new topics, new discussions, and all of our tech issues should be handled. So thank you so much, and I appreciate you joining.
Dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog, we keeping it G.